Hi, I'm Grace Talusan, and I'm teaching the writing workshop for the 2020 Global Entrepreneurship Retreat. The I'll share my screen with you. This will be a half-hour workshop, and I'll be in the chat box. This is recorded, so I'll be in the chat box, and I'll be able to answer some of your questions later on. Um, but the name of this workshop is Writing for Healing Stories to Empower. We only have half an hour together, so it's really fast, but I'm going to try to teach you some of the techniques and the practices that I use in writing. So first, a little bit about me. I'm Grace Talusan, and I'm the author of this memoir called The Body Papers. Some of you may be familiar with it, but it is a book that I wrote, a memoir that I wrote little by little over many years. I didn't even know that I was writing a book, and it's was a very healing experience for me. And publishing the stories was also a very empowering experience. So that's why I wanted to share some of what I learned from writing the book and give you the opportunity to practice some of these techniques and learn from some of the people that I learned from. And also, I wanted to highlight some Pinay authors who have recent books out that I also think are helpful for us to look at. Okay, so in terms of the Global Retreats daily program, this is an example of a learn part of the daily program. It's a skill building workshop, and you'll be doing some practice. So I hope you have something to write with, a notebook, your phone, your computer, it doesn't matter. A piece of paper and a pencil is probably a good way to do it, just so that you get a break from your device, since you're on we are all on our devices so much. But whatever you want to use is totally fine. So as I said, the schedule is 30 minutes. We're going to start with a quote from Barbara Jane Reyes. I'm going to introduce you to the daily diary exercise from Linda Berry. I'll introduce you to a prompt for the writing exercise. I'll tell you a little bit about how to share your work, even to yourself. I have a resource list, and then we can have time at the end and even in the chat box for questions. But this is a experiential workshop. You'll be writing and moving along and doing the activities as we go. The first thing I want to do is read you an excerpt from a new book by Barbara Jane Reyes called Letters to a Young Brown Girl. And this is from an excerpt from one of the pieces. I wanted to start with it because I think it's a way to remind us why and how it is so important for us to tell our stories, especially for those of us who have been invisible in some way, erased in some way. I think it's very important for us to tell the truth of our lives. And this is Reyes's writing. What if I told you that you don't have to do as you're told? Yes, you can cut up the script they made you recite by heart with your cut up tongue. Yes, by those people who wanted you to be their lace trimmed, pink silk ribboned heart shaped box. Yes, they wanted you to let them open you up. They wanted to split open all your little smooth, sweet pieces to mouth you, to melt you, as if you would just let them. Yes, you are allowed to open, twirl your butterfly bladed words. Siete cuchillos. I see you, sister. Your swift knives concealed under your lace edged, ribboned skirt. I wanted to start with Barbara Jane Reyes because this is a new book that's out, just came out in the past few months. It's a beautiful book. She's telling us and encouraging us to share our stories, whether we want to write or speak them. She's reminding us about how important that is, how powerful and healing that is. So I wanted to start with her as the first quote. Next, we're going to do an exercise. This is Linda Berry. She is half Filipino, and she is somebody that I've been learning from for many years. I took a course with her many, many years ago, but I've been keeping up by reading her books, watching her videos online, and continuing to learn from her. So we're going to do this very quick exercise called Daily Diary. I encourage you to do this exercise Take 3 to 5 minutes every day to do it. It's a way of getting in touch with yourself, learning what's in there. The more that you know about yourself, the more powerful you can be. Okay. And she writes about the point and the mission of this exercise. The point of the daily diary exercise is not to record what you already know about what happened to you in the last 24 hours. Instead, it's an invitation to the back of your mind to come forward and reveal to you the perishable images about the day you didn't notice you noticed at all. So it's not meant to be the kind of assignment where you're just like recounting the things in your in your calendar, or in your in your date book, for that matter. It's all the things that are not recorded there. It's the things that the images, the moments, the bits of dialogue, the insights, the things that you are worth remembering, not the places you went or the people you had to meet for an appointment or the things that you had to cross off a list. It's in fact the opposite of that. It's a list that you want to make, a list of things that you want to remember. So this is a sample from one of Barry's books, and she writes to us about how to keep a diary, a way of keeping a diary. Dear diary, my New Year's resolution is to write in here every single day. And as we know, she goes on to say, why does this so rarely work out? Most of us have tried keeping a diary only to have it go one of two ways. Either it's an obituary like recounting of events, and she has the example over here of got up, fed the cat, went to work, came home, fed the cat, went to bed, RIP. So this is like the headstone of all the things that we had to get done. Or she has this other example here and says that the daily diary might become a hamster wheel of feelings of worry and dissatisfaction about our relationships with other people. Mostly it's complaints. So she has things on this hamster wheel like, no fair, I don't want to, why does he, I wish they would, how could he, why can't I? And the cephalopod in the daily diary is saying, tell me less. What Barry instead is encouraging us to do with this daily diary exercise is to find a way that will teach us to hear, see, and remember the world all around us. And so she has a composition book, but you can just take a piece of paper. You can even do this on your phone or your computer. You can make it look this way. And she says to make 4 boxes, 2 long boxes and 2 short boxes. The first long box on the left is from 1 to 10, a list of things you did from the day before. And then 1 to 7, a list of things you saw from the day before. And then she has a small box in the corner, a piece of dialogue, a piece of music, a sound that you heard. And then you have draw or sketch something that you want to draw or sketch and remember in this little box. And I'll just read this part of the daily diary. So what goes into the daily diary? Your diary are things that you noticed when you became present. That is to say, when the hamster wheel of thoughts and plans and worries stopped long enough for you to notice where you were and what was going on around you. Little things. And so it's all the little things that we notice, that our mind notices, but maybe we don't think is that important, but somehow they still stay with us. And so you might not get this at first, but if you practice it, it'll unearth all kinds of interesting information for you. It'll also um, get you into the habit of noticing and observing. And there's the idea that a writer is a person who lives life twice. There's a way that when you engage in the act and the practice of writing, you start to um, recall and remember and start to make meaning of your life through all these little moments and things that you've noticed and bits of insight, things you've observed. And the daily diary is a way to capture that. Okay, so I'd like you to do this now. Get a piece of paper or something else and do this to your page. Split it in half and then make two long boxes and then two small boxes. And you can approximate this. The most important thing about it is that you have a place to write down what you did, what you saw, something you heard, and sketch something you drew. If it doesn't fit in the page right now, that's okay. Just do the best you can. You're practicing and learning a way of working right now. Okay, so I'm going to continue to read the instructions. Maybe you're going to go grab a piece of paper, you're going to fix your page, and while you're fixing your page to make it set up to look like this, I'm going to read you some more quotes that explain the instructions for this. We're not starting yet. I'm just reading you the instructions. We begin with the 5 or 6 minute diary drawn on a single page. On the left column, we write down 7 things we did. On the right, 7 things we saw. In the bottom left box, we write down something we overheard. And in the bottom right, we drew a picture of something we saw. The point of this practice is to begin to notice when we notice something. It's akin to a certain sort of waking up and becoming present in a different way than we usually are in our day to day lives. We catch ourselves noting something that has caught our eye or ear. We begin to realize these flashes of awakeness, which can oddly feel like dreaming, are happening to us all day long. Quote, whether from some object, scene, event, or memorable phase of the mind, the manifestation being out of proportion to the significance or strictly logical relevance of whatever produces it. And this is from a piece of writing by Morris Beha called Epiphany. But the point of this again is to wake up. This is a practice that will help us notice. If you regard this practice as a not yet understood means of deepening your experience in this mysterious, sad, hilarious, beautiful, and terrible world, one that creates increasing conditions for your insight and intuition, then you may find reason enough to convince the top of your mind to let you give it your time, even if the value of the exercise remains unclear for now. So basically, Barry is asking us to trust her and to trust me as I show you this exercise, that even if you don't understand it yet, it is a way of deepening your experience. And the more that you practice it, the more that you'll become used to it and you'll train your mind to notice and find the things that are worth saving and keeping. And that sort of information can be really valuable, whether it's in your trying to improve your business, trying to learn more about yourself or self improvement, trying to write and make art. All of this material is really valuable and deep. This is an example that I found on the internet of someone who made their own daily diary. So you see that it's dated at the top. This person, I think they're saying day 4 because they're trying to do this in a streak of days. We have the date, the day, you have this 6 list of things that this person did, a list of 6 things the person saw. So the first thing that the person did was regretted ordering the Cajun sausage hot link. The thing that the person saw, red, yellow, blue, and orange coral. And then there's this picture of cookies that this person drew, and then something that this person heard, quote, I think I ate a peanut butter sandwich. So, it's really mundane seeming sort of things, but as you start to practice it, it starts to become very specific, and you start to build an image bank. And if you're trying to work on writing, this is the very material that you can use to make your writing. These images, these lines, these phrases, these moments. When people ask you to be specific or give examples, these are the examples. Okay, so I'd like you to do your daily diary. You can see the picture right here. I'm going to remind you of what it looks like. And now we're going to do a variation of this. I actually want you to do a different kind of daily diary. Because you're learning this for the first time, I'm going to have you stretch the scope of time much longer. So instead of just reflecting 24 hours before this moment and doing the daily diary, which is the usual way to do it, I actually want you to think back to mid March, to basically when the stay at home started, quarantine pandemic started. And I want you to reflect back on the past several months and go through your mind and make a list of 7 things that you did during these past several months that stay with you and 7 images that you saw. So these are 7 things that you did, 7 images that you saw from the past 7 months that stay with you. Hopefully, these are things that you saw and did firsthand as opposed to experience them through a screen. And I know that we are mostly spending our lives on screens and, we're in our homes and we're not supposed to go out for most of us. But even still, try to pick things that you directly experienced, as opposed to directly experiencing through a screen, if that makes sense. Okay. So I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to make this list. It is fast and it's by design very fast because we're trying to get past the critics in your head and just write the stuff down. And you can start now. 3 minutes starts now. About 30 more seconds. Okay, so that was about 3 minutes, and you have hopefully made a list of these things from the pandemic that you did and saw. I'm going to read you something else, and we're going to start another exercise. This is from Amy Nazuka Matato's new book called World of Wonders. A catalpa can give 2 brown girls in western Kansas a green umbrella from the sun. Don't get too dark, our mother would remind us as we ambled out into the relentless Midwestern light. Every day after school, the bus dropped me and my younger sister off at Larned State Hospital, and every day our classmates stared at us as the bus pulled away. I'd unlock the door to the doctor's quarters with a key tied to my yarn necklace, and we'd go inside, fix ourselves snacks, and finish worksheets on fractions or spelling. We'd wait until our mom called to say we could meet her in her office, a call that meant she was about 10 minutes away from being done for the day. We'd click off the TV and scramble to get our plastic jelly sandals on for the block-long hospital walk to the hospital's administration building. Catalpa trees dotted the wide prairie grounds and watched over us as we made our way to Mom's office. My sister and I knew not to go anywhere near the fence line of the patient's residence because they sometimes were given basketball privileges outside, behind 3 layers of barbed wire. But occasionally I allowed myself to look at them when I rode my maroon 3-speed bike, and sometimes an inmate would wave as I pass. So the part I want to focus on in this passage, this is a nonfiction, this is essay from Amy Nezuko latest book, is this line here: "Don't get too dark, our mother would remind us." And I want us to do a quick writing exercise with that. I think that there's a lot of things that people tell us when we're growing up, and sometimes it's destructive. Sometimes it's not, sometimes they're encouraging. But no matter what, I think that one of the ways that we can gain our power is to tell stories about when we didn't have so much power. And for me and for most of us, that's when we were children. So I want us to use Amy's sentence as the way to get started for this prompt. Don't get too dark, our mother would remind us. So I want you to write a reminder that somebody would tell you when you were a younger person or a child. It could be exactly what Amy's mother said, don't get too dark, because I know many of us have been told that. And then you can decide who is the one who told you that. Okay, so we'll do that right now. Write down what is a reminder or a command that someone told you or that you heard when you were a young person. And write that down. Now write down who told it to you. When is the time that they told this to you? What do you remember? How did they tell it to you? Was it a nice voice, a neutral voice, a scolding voice? And in the moment when they were telling you this in your past, when you were younger, why did you think as a child or a younger person they were telling this to you? And now I want you to think about now, from who you are now, reflecting on that moment, looking back from where you're at with all the insight and information and growth that you've done. When you look back, why do you think they told you that? And is this something that you want to challenge or question? Is it something that you disagree with, this command or reminder that someone told you? And now I'd like you to take 2 minutes and I'd like you to write a couple of lines the way Amy Nezuko Matado does. She writes about this particular moment that happened pretty often when she was living at that hospital administration grounds with her family. This happened probably every day. So she writes, "Don't get too dark, our mother would remind us." I'd like you to do the same for the next 2 minutes. Write about the moment or the moments when you would hear this reminder or command, and use any of the notes that you took, but try to write like 1 or 2 sentences just to get started. And 2 minutes starts now. About 10 more seconds for your exercise. I want you to notice how it made you feel to write that and to remember, and how it felt if you got to the part where you're able to look back and reflect on what you think about that, how it made you feel to either talk back or question why you were told that thing. I'm going to read you my version from my book. Um, so this is what something that I heard when I was younger, and this is from the body papers. I was terrified of my mother's silver scissors. When I made too much noise or screamed in the apartment when the baby was finally sleeping, my mother whisper screamed for me to be quiet. Do you want me to cut your tongue out? She asked with all seriousness. But if you cut my tongue out, how would I talk? I asked. Can you sew my tongue back on after you take it off? You ask too many questions for your own good, my mother said. I remembered this threat in college when I read Ovid's Metamorphosis. After Philomela is raped in the woods, her rapist cuts her tongue out so that she can't talk about what he did to her. She weaves a tapestry that tells the story of her rape, setting in motion a revenge which results in the rapist unknowingly eating his young son. This is how dangerous a story is. My mother, now in her 70s, returned from a dental appointment recently and reported that she had a frenectomy. Her dentist snipped the band of tissue under her tongue. All this time, she had been tongue tied. One cut freed her tongue. So it was really powerful and empowering for me to write that passage. It was also really scary, but I'm really glad that I did, because for me to grow up being afraid of speaking and writing and being seen, because for lots of reasons, but one, because I was told that I would get my tongue cut out. It meant a lot for me to be able to write that and publish it in a book, and it was very empowering for me to do that, and healing. So I know I didn't get to all of my slides, but I do want to thank you for being with me today. I am going to be doing another panel that I hope you can attend. Here is my contact information. You know, if you want books like mine and these other ones here to exist, and Amy Nizuka Matato's and Barbara Jane Reyes's, you know, we have to support them. That means we need to show the marketplace that there is an audience for these books. Part of the reason why me and so many other folks had trouble publishing our books is publishers would say, oh, there's like no readers, there's no market. I know that's not true. And so anyways, I just encourage you to support the sorts of work that you want to be out in the world. And if you enjoyed, you know, that excerpt and from the other books that I read from as well, I hope that you know you support our books, and hopefully you'll have access to my slides. I have resources that you can look more to from here if you'd like. But you know, there's excellent work out there to share. So I hope that you write your stories. Thank you.